Well, I want to welcome you all back to our live. Again, my name's Tyreese Stafford. I'm here with Trustee Miguel Jones and Illinois Representative Emanuel Welch to talk about Juneteenth and the state of the Black community today. How you doing, Trustee Jones?
I am great. I'm really excited for tomorrow's march. That's going to extend through, starting in Broadview, starting at 3:30, extending to Bellwood, Maywood, and ultimately to Forest Park. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm really excited to have not only our 7th District state representative, but he's a lot more than just that. I mean, we're talking successful attorney. I mean, he's been doing this, at the state level, since 2013, am I right? And, before then he has, school district experience. So, I mean, this is the man, the myth, the legend. Also my frat brother, Emanuel Welch. I'm really happy to have you talking with us.
Well, I'm honored to be here with you, brothers. I got my alpha brother on the right of me and my traveling brother on the left of me, the worshipful master. I'm doubly covered tonight.
That's right. Pleased to have you. Well, me and Trustee Jones, we want to get to it and ask you a few questions, obviously, just to get your insight. Trustee Jones, I'll lead.
Yeah, so let's start off with Juneteenth. State Rep, what does Juneteenth mean to you? And what should it mean to our country in 2020?
Well, in this space that we exist in, Juneteenth has always had meaning to folks like us. We know that it's the day that slaves were set free, or when they received news that President Abraham Lincoln had set slaves free. It's our Emancipation Day. And in our community, Juneteenth is equally important or more important than the 4th of July. It is our Independence Day. And I think that with the civil unrest in the country, it has taken on even greater meaning this year. And we need to capitalize on this moment.
Nice. Okay. Very well. With that being said, I want to speak about the civil unrest and the state of the Black community as it relates to George Floyd and the situation that happened, and what is your opinion about obviously that case and some of the things that we in the Black community need to do and things that need to happen, obviously, in regards to that?
Yeah. Well, my thoughts on the George Floyd murder was that it was tragic. It is just devastating, yet again, that an unarmed African American was killed in this country. But we have to take a look at that situation that took place in broad daylight, where a white police officer felt very comfortable putting his knee on the neck of a Black man for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and say, how can we turn this tragedy into triumph? And the fact that it did happen for 8 minutes and 46 seconds in broad daylight, and it happened during the midst of a global pandemic where there's no sports on TV and there's not much people can do other than pay attention to their social media. Everyone in the world has seen that video. Everyone has been impacted by that video. And so I think more so than ever before, we are in a watershed moment in our nation's history. And we need to take advantage of that watershed moment to get some real policy into place. These things that are happening right now in our country are a result of systemic injustices and poverty. And we have an opportunity here, a real opportunity, to address systemic racism and poverty and get some real reforms put in place.
Chris, well, I guess I want to bring to the topic, just government. And so, people like to say, as it relates to elected officials, particularly Black elected officials, that, we just don't have a place in politics, and we're not really policy oriented. We're just focusing on marching. And I asked our Senate Majority Leader this question. I want to ask you. People want to know, what are we trying to get passed? Do we have a Black agenda? Meaning, do we have policy that is specific to the Black struggle and things to improve us? And so I want to ask you, do we have a Black agenda? And if we do, what's in it and where are we at with it?
Well, absolutely, we have a Black agenda. And one of the things that we've been doing as elected leaders, though, is we have ideas as elected leaders, but I think it's important that you get input from various constituent groups, from the community, and those that you are elected to serve. And so we have an agenda. We are crossing the T's on it and dotting the I's. But part of that agenda is marching. We're marching for our ancestors. We're marching for Frederick Douglass, who said power concedes nothing without a demand. We're marching for Dr. Martin Luther King, who said riots are the voices of the unheard. We're marching because we have not been heard. We're marching because injustices that existed 50 years ago during the civil rights movement still exist. We're marching because poverty that existed 50 years ago in the Black community still exists. And that is why it's important that we have an agenda. And on that agenda are things that are going to address injustices and poverty. We need to make sure that we have immediate police accountability, real police accountability, not just something that's window dressing and good PR, press releases, like that crap President Trump signed in an executive order a couple of days ago. We need real police reform, and we need investments in our communities. And that starts with at least $1 billion in every single Black community. And people say, well, you're demanding $1 billion. That's a start, because the problems we have been going on for so long. That's just a start. We need education, pre-K through 12, higher education. We need job opportunities. When you drive through construction zones all across this state, there's construction going on highways. I don't ever see anyone that looks like the three of us. And those jobs pay like $45 an hour. We can do all right with jobs that pay $45 an hour, and that doesn't include the time and a half. We need the same opportunities that other people have, and that's what our agenda is demanding. But I'm also happy to see that the governor has already started traveling around the city and the state, announcing a lot of investments in our communities, like he just did yesterday.
This is a systemic issue that we're dealing with in the Black community. I want to ask you to speak on, obviously you kind of touched on it a little bit when you spoke on President Trump, the election and the voting of our people and the importance of that when it comes to making change and demanding change.
I said it earlier about this being a watershed moment in our history. Part of that moment in our history is taking advantage of it. And there's so many things that we can do, everyone collectively. And that starts with recognizing that democracy was designed to be a participatory sport. You cannot win unless you participate. Okay, if you are a sports person, you cannot win if you don't show up and cross the lines and participate in the game. And so let's not forfeit the game. Let's be in it to win it. And we got to go vote. This election in November is one of the biggest that we'll ever see. And we already have a president who has demonstrated that he does not care about the Black community. He does not care about the brown community. As a result of the Supreme Court telling him he was wrong in how he was treating dreamers in this country, people that have paid billions in taxes here and have come here for the American dream, just like we did, just like we all want. We came here against our will, but we're here and we want that American dream as well. And so if you want change, you got to participate in making sure that change happens. And that starts with getting out and going voting. Another thing we got to do is go to my2020census.gov and fill out that census form, because that census that takes place every 10 years is critically important. And if we want resources in our community and we want representation that looks like us in government, we have to be counted. And what I mean by that is for instance, with regard to the representation, if our numbers go down, we could lose districts based on the remapping process and lose a number of people in our Black caucus. We don't want that to happen. We want our caucus to grow, not shrink. And that's why it's important that we make sure every single person in this state is counted. Our congressional representation will be based on that remap. Our representation in Springfield will be based on that remap. So many things are tied to whether or not we are counted or not. And if we don't have representation, we don't have a voice. And so voting and participating in a participatory sport like democracy and getting counted and being counted in that census are two of the most important things we can all do.
We are here with State Representative of the 7th District, Emanuel Welch, and he's just giving us some insight and his thoughts on current events and about the 2020 census. Chris, let's pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
Before I do that, I really want to share a story. One of the things that I really look up to you about is your ability to move a crowd and your ability to use semantics to really really get us going. And one of the things that I've watched the video like 10 times. The way you were like, it's up there like, repeat after me. Our demand. I'm just like, this guy has just, the courage and just, I was just so impressed. So this is why I want to ask this question. We're talking about I want to talk about Black fatherhood. I know you are the father of two young children, but I want to focus particularly on your son. I know you love your daughter. Let's just focus on, since we're guys and we're talking about young men, let's just focus on that. What's been your conversations with your son as it relates to police and law enforcement, as it relates to how he should think about them, and how his interaction should be? I'm looking to, I have a 18-month-old, and I'm looking to pick your brain on what are those conversations like, and how do we approach this as Black fathers?
So that's a great question, Miguel. And I got to tell you, as a Black man raising a Black son, I worry about my son every day. I worry about my daughter every day, but I worry about my son because you see the images of what happened to Black men. All three of us probably have experiences that we can go into great detail about, and that's a show in and of itself. And so, my children have been born both since I've been in elected office, particularly state representative. And so in many ways, they get treated like little local celebrities. People see them and they're excited to see them. And so one of the things I have to do as a Black father is have those conversations to let them know what things are like in reality, that not everyone have the same opportunities that they have. Not everyone has the same things that they have, and try to make them try to understand how folks are living and struggling on a daily basis. Something as simple as making them eat all their food when we sit down for dinner, and understanding that not everyone has a meal to enjoy in front of them. And so police treat them very well because of who they are, right? And so they haven't experienced the things that we've experienced. And so I've had to have conversations with them to understand what they're seeing daddy watch on the evening news, and that's not easy. My kids a couple of weeks ago went around town with their mom, and they gave police officers all around town goodie baskets, and they had notes in them. And I got a text from the local police chief saying, "That was really wonderful of your kids." And I was like, "What was really wonderful?" And he was like, "The goodie baskets they delivered to the police officers, because all they know is how great police officers are." And let me say that most police officers are great people. It's the few bad apples that are making them look bad. And so my kids haven't had any experience with those few bad apples. And so I've had to have those tough conversations and tell them there's some bad folks out there that'll do bad things just because of the color of your skin, and you have to prepare them for that so that they can be as ready as possible.
Okay, I would really on that question, obviously, and speak about obviously something that I feel is very important in our community, and that's passing the torch. Understanding that you have to, for generations, continue to progressively build and grow. And want to get your input on that as far as being able to keep unified and don't allow the divisiveness in our communities to affect us, but yet help that next generation become better than you, and wanted your input on that.
Yeah, I think that is so important. You know, I think it's important that we build unity in our community and not division. As you guys know, and things that I try to do is we try to, build coalitions. You win by addition, not subtraction. The math, this is simple math. You win by addition, not subtraction. And so you build coalitions, and what's good for our community is good for the brown community. What's good for the Black and brown community is good for the yellow community. And you just continue to build. And what you try to explain to people is that we're all in this together. And united we stand, divided we fall. And I shared with some of my friends in the Latino caucus earlier this week at a press conference where we announced that in Springfield we had passed health care for elderly immigrants, and why it was important for a Black person like myself to be a champion of that. And, I can't go out and march for justice and equality in my community and not recognize that justice and equality needs to exist in the Latino community. We all have to work together. And when we do that, we will accomplish great things. And if you know history, if you know the history of slavery, when Black people tried to escape slavery in this country and went south into Mexico, and America tried to get slaves back because they were slaves, the Mexican country said, those are not slaves. Those are Black Mexicans. What are you talking about? Those are Black Mexicans. Those aren't slaves. These are our people. And so Mexicans saved hundreds of thousands of lives of former slaves. And so that was one of those examples in history where they helped us. We have to help each other. And when we recognize that by standing together, we're going to accomplish great things and move forward, and that divided we fall, I think that's a first step in accomplishing some great policy victories.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk. Well, I want to talk about you, Chris, and then I'll transition to my question. Word on the street is that you actually used to be a pretty decent baseball player. Back in the day. And so we are talking about your son. It might be, there's potential that he might be a decent baseball player, perhaps even a college baseball player. And so I want to talk about some of the stuff that you've done as it relates to the NCAA. We've been talking about equality. We've been talking about fair shake. Tell us, what are we doing as it relates to some of the things that the NCAA has done for, athletes that have, made a fortune for their organization, but have, in a lot of times, went hungry or went without. I want you to be able to share with the people what you've been able to do and accomplish so far, and where we at with that.
Well, first of all, Miguel, thank you for the question. In my 8 years in the General Assembly, I have looked at things with an equity lens, and it's important that in the fight for equality, we have equity everywhere we can, and whether that be in education or in the sports arena, for instance. One of the things that I fought for and was honored that Governor Pritzker signed into law last year was corporate board diversity. When you look around, all these corporations making millions of dollars off of black folk, they don't have black people represented at their board table. And if you look at well-published data from the McKinsey and Company, diversity drives performance. You're already making money off of us. Put us around the board table and listen to some of our ideas. You're going to make more money. And that's just proven in the data. And so I fought for corporate board diversity, and a law that will actually go into effect in 2021. And I followed up that bill with filing a bill that would require the NCAA, all divisions, to allow athletes to at least, again, a starting point, at least profit off their own name, likeness, and image. That's, athletes like Shannon and Sterling Brown, who went to Michigan State and SMU, superstars when they were at Proviso East and Maywood. They should be able to profit off their name on a jersey. Other people are making money off of it. In fact, the universities are making billions off of selling those jerseys with the kids' names on them. So why shouldn't they be able to profit off of someone else using their own name, likeness, and image? That's just a start. Many people believe that athletes should be paid because of the kind of money that the universities make. And if you look at the salaries that the commissioners of these conferences make, the salaries that these coaches are making, the stipends that they receive for speaking engagements, they're making this money off the backs of those who are actually on the field doing the actual hard work. And so why shouldn't the athletes be able to benefit from that? And if you talk to athletes, like an athlete like I was many, many years ago, you can be in school on a scholarship, but not have money in your pocket to buy a meal. You can be an athlete on a scholarship, but not have money to have your family come see you play. Many athletes go to bowl games and championship games, and they don't have loved ones there to watch them because they don't have the money to buy a plane ticket, get a hotel room, and come and see them play in probably the biggest games that they'll ever play in their lives. And so why shouldn't they be able to profit off their own name, likeness, and image? And we got a bill passed in the House, it's stalled in the Senate, but we put enough pressure on them with other states that the NCAA is trying to do the right thing on their own because they know that we're on their tail. And I think it's important that we continue to light those types of fires on that issue and many other issues to come.
Great question. Chris, I would like to a little bit. You were speaking about the Brown brothers, and I know they're part of the sponsorship for tomorrow's Juneteenth March. I would like you to speak on the Juneteenth March of tomorrow and what's your thought, and please encourage people to attend.
Well, I am really honored and thrilled to be a part of a march that's been organized by our senator, Senator Kimberly A. Lightfoot, the first African-American female majority leader in the history of the Illinois Senate. She's been a great friend and mentor to me and has organized this Juneteenth March as a celebration of Juneteenth and a march for justice and police accountability. I think it's critical that we all come out tomorrow at 3:30 at the Broadview Village Hall, which is where we're starting. We're going to march on through Bellwood and Maywood and into Forest Park because we have to celebrate Juneteenth, a day that I still think should be a national holiday. And we need to let folks know what that day means to all of us. That's why it's a celebration. But we also need to recognize the moment that we're in this country and march for justice and police accountability because, Miguel, our demand is for justice and police accountability. And Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. What's the point of marching if we don't have a demand? So we know what we want, and we're going to get it. And if we don't get it, we're going to keep on marching. There's a reason why the Civil Rights Movement was a very effective movement because, civil disobedience is good. And it's okay to be civilly disobedient. And we're going to get out there until we get what we're demanding. You want us to go away? Just give us what we demand. So come on out tomorrow at 3:30 in Broadview at the Village Hall on 2350 South 25th Avenue and join us. We're going to start promptly because that's a long march. And it's going to be hot, so bring your bottles of water. It's going to be good, though. It's going to be a good one.
If you are just joining us, we are very fortunate to have the 7th District State Representative Chris Welch with us. I want to thank Tyreese for also participating in this because Juneteenth is tomorrow, and we're really excited about it. Chris, I know you're a busy guy, so I know you got to run. Maybe if you just give us a quick 2-minute comment on the response in the Black community to looting. A lot of folks have been, since this has happened, have really thought about Black economics, group economics. What can we do now? A lot of the feedback that I heard, for the people that necessarily somehow not condone the looting, but rationalize it was, well, those weren't, brothers and sisters that own those stores, and they didn't treat us well. And, we decided to just do what we did. And so I want to know, what's your response to the, just kind of the overall, just that what was going on there, and then the next step as it relates to what can the young entrepreneur, the Black entrepreneur do to really help fuel their community as we go on and figure out solutions?
That's a great question. Let me first say that we should never condone looting. People that open up those businesses work hard and, to do what they did to get those businesses open. I can't condone violence and looting and things of that nature. Martin Luther King and civil rights movement was effective. It was nonviolent civil disobedience. And I think that's what will be effective in 2020 as well. But I think it's important to explain why looting occurs. Put the provocateurs and the opportunists aside. When you see people coming out of stores with big screen TVs and boxes of Nikes that they clearly can't fit, it's because they're going to take that stuff and sell it. They're going to sell it because they need money. We all been in our homes for 10 to 12 weeks because of the pandemic. We're dealing with record unemployment in this country, record unemployment in this state. Many people couldn't even get through to our unemployment system because of the mass volume of calls that we were receiving. People are broke. They're trying to find food to put on their tables. Food banks, they can't keep food on the shelves because it was leaving so fast. Because people are trying to find food to put on the table. They're trying to find clothes to put on their backs. And so what we have to do is say, what can government do to address those issues that would prevent looting? We go back to poverty, okay? And we have to address these issues. And I'm proud of what the General Assembly did in our budget that we passed in May, and the announcement that the governor made yesterday, investing $900 million in immediate infusion into our economy. We're going to help people with mortgage and rental assistance because people are struggling and trying to figure out how to pay their mortgage and their rent right now to this day. And so having money coming from the state to help with mortgage and rental assistance is critical. The governor announced that starting Monday, you can apply for business incentive grants, the big grants. If you're a small business, there's money out there. A minority-owned business, a business that was damaged because of looting, there's money out there that can help you get back on your feet. Again, these are the proper roles that government play. And I'm proud of the fact that the Black Caucus played a critical role in getting these things to happen. And I'm really proud of the fact that we actually have a governor who's actually listening to us. Remember, I said earlier that Dr. King said riots are the voices of the unheard. Well, we have a governor who's listening to us, and we have to continue to make our demands and continue to let them know what our issues are, and that $900 million is just a start. It's just a start. We demand more because our issues have lasted for far too long, and they're not going to disappear overnight.
Chris, I would like to thank you for your time. Appreciate it, and hopefully we can get you back on to have more discussions later.
My brothers on the left and right, I appreciate both of you. And, if you call, I'm here anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Have a great evening.